Hey Greta, do you know what a delta is? No, I'm not really sure. Do you know what a delta is? I think I do, and I'm going to do my best to show everybody out there what a delta is while you go and work on your hair, okay, Delta? I'm Delta. Okay, Greta? You go sit down, okay, while I try to figure out what I'm going to say. All right. Welcome, everybody. I'm Mr. G. I'm talking to you from Franklin Academy of the Gifted in Anoka. And I know that there's a lot of you out there that have been watching videos and things that I've been putting together, and I thank you for watching. We've been talking a lot of landforms lately, mountains and valleys. And I think you've even probably seen the Grand Canyon video that I put together. There are different types of landforms that we haven't spent much time with. Um, we haven't really talked a whole lot about isthmuses. That's a hard word to say, by the way, and that's way down here in isthmus. And then, plateaus, buttes, basins, mesas, all that kind of thing. But right now, we're very fortunate because we live in a plain area, which is also characterized by having flat ground. You don't have mountains or hills necessarily around you. A lot of grass, great soil to be able to grow things. So our farmers are very fortunate. In the United States, we know that on the West Coast, we have the Rocky Mountain Range. And of course, there's a little plain area in there in California. You notice that? Very similar to what we have in the Midwest. And then you have the Appalachians. In the middle, there are some low hills, mountains, I guess you could call them. Do you know what that little range is called in southern Missouri and Arkansas? Yeah, that's the Ozarks. So you can see different things on these elevation maps. It's really cool to look at. So again, we've talked about canyons and mountains and valleys. A lot of neat things. We'll get into more as we continue with our exploration on landforms. We're going to talk today about deltas. This is what Greta wanted to talk about, or Greta wanted me to talk about. If you look in this picture, you'll notice all the mountains in the background with the snow on them. Well, obviously, when it warms up, that snow turns into water. It has a phase change. It turns into water and starts to melt, runs down the hill. And as you also know, water likes to go to the lowest point. If you look to the right of this, there's an ocean over here. Can you take a guess as to what part of the world you think this picture might have been taken? If you said Alaska, you're right. This is in Alaska. We have a mountain range, a lot of mountains, and very, very diverse land in Alaska. A mountain range and snow melts, runs and creates the stream. And that runs straight into the ocean. But on the way, I'm going to go back. What'll happen is that water will start to slow down. But along the way, water's picking up, particles, maybe some boulders, maybe logs, some dead critters. I don't know. It could be anything. But it's bringing it to the very end of its journey as it dumps that stuff towards the ocean. You can see that some of the water down here is very silty looking. It's not clear at all. It's kind of churned up. And then it dumps some of the particles and creates almost more land. It's like it transfers the land from way up here. It transfers it to the end here, and that is what a delta does. And I bet this land is really full of great nutrients and very rich because of the sediment that it's picking up and being able to transfer downstream. Let's take a look at this video here about what happens in the United States and the Mississippi River, which we live by.
Louisiana has two of these breathing rivers, the Mississippi and its tributary, the Atchafalaya. The Mississippi has made Louisiana an international port of trade and commerce, and both rivers have contributed to the lush habitat of Louisiana's people and animals. Many smaller rivers feed into the Mississippi, creating a vast watershed that drains nearly 40% of the continental United States, and all combine to bring the Mississippi and its delta to life. The long-term consequence of levees, however, is prevention of land formation. Rivers deposit sediment in one area over hundreds or thousands of years until the accumulation is so great that the new topography of the land causes the river to change course and begin to deposit sediment somewhere new. When a river is prevented by levees from flooding or changing course, the sediment it carries cannot build up the land, and over time erosion begins to wear away the already existing earth. In the case of the Mississippi River, these levees also mean that all of the sediment carried by the river is dumped uselessly into the Gulf of Mexico and over the continental shelf, illustrated here. As a result, the land of Louisiana's coast is sinking and eroding at an alarming rate, and people's homes and livelihoods are again in jeopardy.
Did you hear the person say that the sediment was dumped uselessly into the ocean? Yeah, unlike Alaska, where you're getting kind of an extension of some islands, you see this very deep area in the Gulf of Mexico? A lot of the sediment's literally just going down and filling that up. We're not able to use it. It's not allowing for the nutrients to be growing new vegetation. It just literally sinks into the ocean. And if you've been anywhere down in New Orleans where they have the Gulf of Mexico, they actually now have an area that is called the dead zone. And you can learn more about that through any number of resources.
Louisiana has two of these.
Let's move on to the next one. What is a delta? Well, the National Geographic Society says that deltas are wetlands that form as rivers empty their water and sediment into another body of water, such as an ocean, lake, or river. A river moves more slowly as it nears the mouth or the end. Wow, Mr. G, I didn't know that. Well, you didn't know that, Greta? Where have you been? Working on your hair or brushing your tooth, or what have you been doing? Well, I'm kind of learning all this new stuff. I'm not that smart. Either am I, but I'm just trying to figure it out as we go, Greta. Well, she also said in the video that they put levees up. Okay, so on the left, if you look, there's flood control here. On the left, those are levees. This is a road next to this green area, which is basically a hill built on this side. You might be able to see it a little bit better here. This is a hill built on this side, and the water flows in between. When the water gets too high, after, say, spring snowmelt or a major storm, you can get flooding, as you see on the right. Obvious dangers with flooding. You lose crops, you could lose life, you could lose animals, you could lose your home. There's a lot of things you can lose. The levees serve a purpose, but just so you know, the levees also have consequences in the sense that they can carry sediment a lot faster and cause some damage in the delta areas that might not otherwise be there. And like I say, creating that dead zone in New Orleans, and also the fact that Louisiana is shrinking in size. So, but the flooding isn't good either. So you have to think about, well, what do I want to do? Do I want to be able to use? You can see even a bridge here. There's a cars that are able to go over this and over this, over the levee and over the river that they have there. Do I want to be able to use the land for farming, support my family, be able to stay safe, and not have to worry about flooding? Or do I worry about what's happening 2,000 miles downstream? Those are the decisions that people wrestle with every day. Here's another video, an animation about what happens when a levee is formed and when a levee isn't formed to the delta.
Here is a simplistic depiction of how a delta unrestricted by levees is formed. This model represents a bird's foot delta similar to the Mississippi. Here we see the sediment being churned up and carried by the rushing waters. As more and more sediment rides with the water, the sand, silt, and clay begins to build up along the banks and in certain parts of the river mouth until channels are formed. Finally, the sediment has piled up so much that the water has had to divert itself around the newly created islands, and we now have an emerging birdfoot delta. Now, vegetation begins to form on the newly created and nutrient-enriched land around the river and on top of the islands.
So you can see the vegetation in green.
Before and after. Natural land production is a slow process. This delta would have taken approximately 1,000 years to form.
And the folks in Louisiana, this is very important to them because they
Here's
are, whoops. In Louisiana, obviously, they've talked about the size of their state is actually decreasing I don't know if it's day by day, year by year, but they're getting smaller there, and they obviously want to know what they can do to save some of their land down there. All right, so let's review about deltas. Now, Greta, did you know that deltas are a landform where the mouth of a river flows into an ocean, sea, desert, estuary, lake, or another river? No, I didn't know that, but I know now. It's formed by sediment that's carried by a river being deposited into the wider mouth. Hey, Mr. G, you kind of have a big mouth. What did you say, Greta? Come on. No, that's not very nice. The word delta comes from the uppercase letter delta, which is shaped like a triangle. And that's kind of the shape of a delta. It kind of forms a triangle. And then the river delta can cover just a few square miles or hundreds or thousands of square miles. So that's what we've been talking about here with deltas, and I really appreciate you watching. Keep tuned for more videos as we journey down our landform unit to learn more about this amazing Earth we live on.